I just had a very interesting conversation with a candidate for a job who's a researcher. So he was applying for a scientist job. So there's someone who's really good at maths and formulas and all that stuff. And one of the topics during our conversation was to identify his weakness. What's his weakness? And he basically started saying, "Hey, I believe my ability to say no to things isn't the best. I'm too agreeable at times." And when you put it this way, it's not very clear. And I was, tempted to say, "Hey, maybe yes, but maybe I would take this as a secondary weakness because it doesn't sound too convincing, to be honest with you." However, then the more we role played on some questions on, in this case, Amazon's leadership principles, I noticed something very interesting, that the candidate had no problem answering questions about some leadership principles, but really struggled to come up with answers to a leadership principle of have backbone, disagree, and commit. And this sounds very interesting to me because it was actually the second time we were trying to work on this leadership principle. And the question was the time when you raised an uncomfortable issue in an internal meeting. And he actually had 2 or 3 examples for me, and none of them really made sense. None of them really emphasized on that behavior of have backbone and disagree and commit. I mean, actually, one of his examples was when he did have the backbone to bring an issue up in the meeting, but he was unsuccessful in bringing that up, and he ended up fixing the problem himself. So this tells a lot about have backbone, disagree, and commit as not being one of his strengths, obviously. And actually, I thought this as a framework to someone to identify their weakness. Like, what if you went through all the 14 leadership principles and see which principle is the one that you connect the least with? And if this would be have backbone, disagree, and commit, you could say in a job interview, why wouldn't you say that have backbone, disagree, and commit is something I really want to improve on? And I don't believe there's anything wrong with that, so long as the principle is not a core principle for the role. And if you think about it further, if this would be a core principle for that specific role, probably you're not the best candidate for it in the first place. So thinking from this perspective, I find that it in many cases it will be a very productive exercise to see, hey, which of these principles are my weakness. And of course, you could even go vice versa to find which of the principles do you think you're doing the best with. Not the one that you think you're doing the best, but the one that you really have the strong examples for. And this could, of course, qualify as your strength, as your core strength. So this would be a framework that I just thought would be quite useful, when brainstorming for your weaknesses and also your strengths during a job interview.